Hello there. Hi, it's me. Oh, I can hear myself. I think that's a good sign. Yes, on Twitch. Ah, there's even people on Twitch. That's cool. So, can you guys hear me? I see the chat. Hi, hello there. Can you put a thumbs up if you can hear me, just to be sure? Just to be really sure. It's going to be interesting what the delay is on here. Yes, hi. Any thumbs ups? Thumbs up? Yes, perfect. Thank you very much. Nice. Okay. Nodevember is starting. It's gonna be interesting. I don't know how many people here have experience with this. Yes, lots of people. Perfect. Ah, Pablo, hey. I don't know how many people have experience with Nodevember here. Maybe I can just quickly explain what it is. So it's just this event that happens during November and is all about nodes, just making stuff with nodes, just anything to a certain topic per day, basically. That's at least what it was in the last year's. This year, the guys that are making the prompts decided to cut it down to half the prompts because it's a pretty good decision, I think, because it was like very overkill. People were going all out, and it's just much easier to do very elaborate things if you have a little bit more time, so you don't burn yourself out. So that's nice. And maybe I can just show what's going on this year. So if you go to Nodevember, .io. You can see the website with small description and the prompts. And yeah, this year the prompts are a lot more abstract than they were before. Very, very loose. So you can just let your imagination flow and do anything you want to these prompts here. And the way that works, it's that because you have 2 days per prompt now, it's day 1 and 2. So day and tomorrow, it's the 3-sided prompt under the form category. And so yeah, today and tomorrow, I think I'll try and just make it work today. We'll see how that works out. But yeah, usually it's a lot of work to do these things. Is the stream still fine? It says an error occurred on YouTube here for me. On Twitch it looks fine. People are not freaking out in the chat, so I'm going to assume that it's all fine. So yeah, what I was thinking, seems fine? Okay, perfect. What I was thinking for today's prompt, because it's 3-sided, it's going to be all about triangles, right? 3 sides. And what I was thinking was to just make the objectively best triangle there is, which is a slice of pizza. And because it's procedural, I'm just going to have like a very basic pizza shape, slice shape. And YouTube issues are normal. Okay, perfect. As long as it works, it's all fine. And then have a bunch of like ingredients that are scattered on top, and then you can turn them on, off, slide the amount. You'll see how far we can get with how many ingredients we can put on there. But I thought triangle, slice of pizza. That's easy. That's perfect for procedural stuff. And yeah, because before the years, last year I couldn't really do that much because we were like right in the middle of the production of Sprite Fright. The year before I did a lot of things. I did the whole thing, the whole 30 days. And that was always shader nodes. And now that we have this amazing system in Blender called geometry nodes, and it's in a pretty good state by now, I thought just try and do everything with geometry nodes. Your idea, pizza? Yeah, I mean, pizza is, like I said, the objectively best triangle, or circle, I guess, in the whole shape, but slices are great as well. Recorded and kept online. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure if it's just going to stay online on the YouTube channel or how long. At least we're going to put it in some form on the Blender Studio platform. So if you run there, then it's gonna be there later on. I'm also gonna just pack the files and put them there. Maybe like a little bit of a breakdown how they work. But there's definitely gonna be content for this on the Blender Studio platform. Okay. Then let's just start, I would say. You can always just ask questions. There's probably going to be more focused segments where I'm just trying to make things work. So don't expect me to immediately answer all questions. And if I forget something that you really want to answer, then just repeat it at some point. But yeah, I think I'll just go ahead and start. So something you have to keep in mind a little bit is that I haven't really been able to use geometry nodes as they are now all that much, because I was working on SpriteFright and we had the branch there split off before the whole fields got integrated. I know how fields work. I worked together with the guys here at the Blender headquarters to design how they work, but I never really got to use them all that much. So yesterday was actually kind of the first time I properly used them to make something, which was just the thumbnail with the noodles hanging around. So maybe we can just see how it goes as I am learning how fields work for each single node alongside you. Okay. All right, I'm just following the chat here a little bit, but I'll just keep going. Yeah, go ahead. Pizza. Let's see. So the plan was to just start with absolutely nothing, because in theory at this point, geometry nodes should be able to just support starting everything from scratch. You can just create the geometry from absolutely nothing. Just need to change some settings. This is not the PC I normally work on. Node editor. I like my noodles straight like this. Perfect. Primitive. So something to start off, of course. Curve primitives, that's wrong. Mesh primitives. I was thinking about it already. I'm not sure if I can actually use a cylinder that well. Maybe it'll work. Let's just see how it looks when I subdivide it, because I do need the topology in the set. Hello? Oh, caps lock was on. Let's subdivide it, because I do need the topology later on to add a little bit of detail for like creating bulbs and everything in the dough. So let's see. I'll just turn on the wireframe. Yeah, topology doesn't look so great if I want to actually use the detail here in the center. Dorian's new noodler add-on. I've seen it. I haven't tried it yet. I'm relatively happy with the node wrangler as it is, but maybe that also reflects in how my node trees look in the end, because they're kind of messy. So some utilities to actually clean up the node trees might help actually. But yeah, I think instead of using a cylinder for the base shape, I'm just going to use a UV sphere, because then I have a bunch more geometry all around, and I can still make it flat like I want to. So I'll just use the transform, maybe just scale it down on the Z axis. Perfect. Oh, computer's freaking out. That's better. The subdivide node not perform smoothing. Oh yeah, there's a difference. There's a simple subdivide node, for subdividing meshes, and then there's the subdivision surface node. This also does smoothing. I think the subdivide, yeah, doesn't have a smooth subdivision anymore. But subdivision surface is the regular thing that you have in the modifier, and subdivide is more what you would get in the in edit mode when you actually perform a subdivision like this. Okay. On the cylinder, you can change the fill segments. Ooh. Wait, let me check that out. Ah. That looks good. Oh, yeah, that's perfect, actually. Thanks. Already learning. So I can ignore all of this. Do it like this. And we're done. It's a pizza. Now I just need to make it a segment. Question is, can I fill stuff back up if I delete it? I think I can technically use the convex hull node for this. Let's just try that out. I'm gonna try just selecting. Yeah, I think I'm gonna triangulate it first. Let me see. The setup here is not perfect. I need to maybe make sure that it works next time. So I'm gonna triangulate it first to be able to have that centerpiece. Wait, I don't need to. Aha. And then select specific faces. I'll just do it like this first to have a starting point, and then work my way up to actually have slices. And for that, I can just use the position field and separate it in its components. Separate XYZ. And simply use the Y component. And compare it with a value. And then delete the geometry. Like this. Maybe the threshold is a little bit. Should I use faces? There we go. Already have a pizza. Now it's open. Yeah, arcus tangents is what I'm gonna tangent is what I'm using later on. Just want to do a very simple version in the beginning, but in theory the convex hull. I already had it. Never mind. Should work. There we go. Now I just lost all of my topology. Is it gonna be fine? What happens if I just triangulate it again? It's a mess. Could of course also just push vertices around at all times. Boolean. No, Boolean is too expensive. You can't afford it. Yeah, maybe. Maybe that would be easier. Okay. I'll give up. I'll use a Boolean operation. Yeah, so as you can see, that's wrong, not a Boolean input. A mesh Boolean. As you can see, this is a very iterative process. I try things and see that they don't work, and then just throw them away and do something else. That's probably not going to change all that much. It's going to keep being like this, but that's also how you just learn the processes and just see what works, because I haven't really used geometry nodes all that much, especially for just creating things from scratch. I've mostly been using them for the stuff that we've been doing on Sprite Fright. Okay, I'm going to then just take a plane, a grid, I mean, and then make it work, I guess. Let's see how it looks. Oops, oh God. All the buttons that I'm pressing don't work. Okay. So yeah, my idea is just to have a plane that has a subdivision in the middle that I can just fold over like a paper and then just plop in there as a cutting element. And for that, I need it approximately like this. And I just transform it to rotate it in the right orientation around the y-axis, 100 degrees. And hang on. Shouldn't this already work? To just give me the leftover element. That's not it. Thought this would be fine. Do I have to really use a cube instead? I'll just do it like this. Okay, let's see. Okay, more position, separate X, Y, Z. And then I just use the absolute of the Y, because that's going to be 1 on the outside and 0 in the center. To offset the position of the plane. But it's a vector, so I need to combine. It's already getting a little bit crowded here. On the X component. There we go. That looks like a triangle shape. And then that's currently just going to offset it by 1. Just going to multiply that. There we go. And then the convex hull is going to do this, which is perfect. And then we Boolean it, and that's the exact opposite of what we need. Well, how do I invert this? It's just gonna... Oh yeah, difference, never mind, wait. That doesn't look like the union. Oh, yeah. It's always gonna just keep the outside, right? Intersect? Oh, yeah, that makes more sense. Wait. Thank you. Stupid Boolean operations. Okay, and when I have the angle, I obviously also want to keep the outside of it. So after setting the position, I'm just gonna scale it up. There we go. By 2. Should be enough. So this is all not super mathematically accurate. If I wanted to actually have this work properly, I would have to do it a little bit differently. But maybe I can figure that out later if I need to. For now, this works. So, done. Got a slice of pizza. Let's call it a day. Just need to add a little bit more detail maybe. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, this whole thing would be a little bit more easy if I actually had more nodes like extrusion, because now I need to use normals somehow to figure out which side is which and stuff like that, but that's gonna be fine. Where's the cylinder? Okay, we're gonna need a bunch more vertices. Maybe I can just have a factor to actually control the resolution on the fly. Yes, so a bunch of math nodes. I just want to have like a certain factor between the different parameters to be able to actually control it with one single parameter. So for the vertices, those should probably be, yeah, to get it like this, it should be yeah, times 8. So the vertices are going to be the fill segments times 8. Like this. And maybe let's make this 1. So I'm going to multiply this by 16. And then I just have one factor to rule them all to be able to set the resolution on the fly. And if I just go to 0.1, it's going to be, okay, that's maybe a little bit too little. 0.24. I have nice and fast calculation of the mesh, so I can actually do the work, and then later on I can just put it back to 1 or even 2 or whatever. Did you save? I don't think I did. Maybe that's a good idea. It should all be set up, so that should be fine. Okay. I think I'm following questions in the chat. Doesn't Boolean always destroy topo? It's retaining the stuff that it doesn't touch, but yeah, wherever the intersections actually are, it kind of destroys the topology. So yeah, making a selection by the faces might actually have been nice for that. Actually, now that I think about it, I'm not so sure I really want to do the Boolean thing. Damn it. Do I have any benefit from the other one? I'll have nicer... Oh yeah, I have the issue that I can't fill these. Or is there a thing yet to just fill loops? I don't think there was something. Let's just check in the mesh. Doesn't look like it. There's fill curve. Right? Where was that? There. And I can probably just create a curve from the edges, but a remesh node, not yet, unfortunately. Still have to use the modifier for that at that point, but at some point, I mean, as far as I know, at least, remesh, yeah, nothing. There's a bunch of stuff that's still in modifiers that's going to be ported to nodes at some point, but this just takes a while. Why don't you just use the solidify modifier? That defeats the purpose of the nodes, though. I wanna keep in nodes. I mean, modifiers are kind of just big chunky nodes that you can only use in sequence. But yeah, extrude node would be nice to have. That was also in the prototype for the fields at the first time. that we tried them out, but yeah, it's not in there right now. I think I'm just gonna make a very rudimentary version and then clean it up later. The nice thing about the procedural workflow is that I can still just replace everything later on as well. Okay, I am going to want to have it a little bit more smoothed anyways though, so let's do just the subdivision surface modifier. And that's the issue. That doesn't look great. What if can I inset the geometry somehow? Okay, let's just try something very nightmarish and see if it works. Kinda. Not really, but kinda. Wait, wrong node. Subdivide. Not too sure about that. I feel like just doing things manually with loads of math kind of might work better, because that's just what I'm used to from using shader nodes, because you can just do anything with vector. Okay, do a displacement texture for each type of object you want and be able to select the faces, verts you would like to apply. Pepperoni, for example. I would just do them as separate pieces, and then yeah, you can just do the displacement separately. But we'll get there eventually. Now I'm a little bit lost with the topology, which is just due to the fact that I'm not used to having any topology at all. That's more complicated than the sphere for the procedural stuff that I'm doing. But let's see. I'm thinking of really just going back to the sphere approach and flattening the sides. In theory that should work, and that will leave me with enough topology that I need. What are you making? Can't you see? It's a slice of pizza. Delicious. Okay. Let's just explore this idea. Math way, best way, yes. Yeah, that's just for me the workflow that I'm most used to. So let's see. I can just use the position to set the position and do everything by hand, which is very nice. And for that, let's just see how it works. Okay. So get the sphere. So the idea that I have right now is just to, from top view, take basically an axis that the slice is going to be mirrored on, and then the points on the right of that axis are going to be shrunken basically to the edge of the slice on this side, and on the left side it's just going to be shrunken to that side. And in the center they're all just going towards the center. It's a bit laggy. Lagging a lot. Yeah, I'm getting a message from YouTube. There are a couple. Twitch seems pretty quiet. There are a couple of people on Twitch. How is it there with lags? Is it better? Maybe I can just also boost the audio in general if it's about the volume. On OBS it looks fine for me in terms of like dropped frames or anything. That looks all green. Oh, there were a bunch of dropped frames earlier on. Right now it seems fine though. Still choppy on Twitch. It's a shame. Not really sure how much I can do about that. Volume is good. Okay, yeah, I increased it a tiny bit. But if it's good now, then it's nice. You can make a pizza by getting a circle, curve, making an arc. Oh, arcs, yeah. By separating by curve parameter, yeah. Then pass it to a curve to mesh. But this is just gonna give me the oh yeah, just make it circular again. Using a quadrilateral curve with twice the radius. It sounds like an interesting idea. I'm not super comfortable with curves yet, but maybe that's a good reason to just try it out. Okay, let's experiment a little bit more. I'm spending a lot of time just fumbling around. Sorry for that. It's just I'm also new to this system. But let's see about the circle. Oh god. Curve, primitives, circle. And then the input curve parameter, or is it here? There it is. And then I delete points by looking at the parameter and comparing it with an epsilon. So the epsilon is just giving me a range. Like this, yeah, but then I need that additional point that I move to the center, but that I can just simply do by using the index. Just taking the first point, comparing with 0. And then I move that to the center. Let's see if that works. Worst case, we'll just have a bunch of different methods of creating a triangle, which is also kind of the point of the three-sided prompt, I guess. So selection, first point is going to be moved into the center. We'll just use a vector input. There we go. Doesn't look like much right now. Try and fill it like this. You could create your own remesher group by adding points. Oh, yeah. Points to volume, volume to mesh. That's actually not that bad of an idea. That would probably work. I'll think about that. Okay, I'm just going back to Komodo's message in the chat to just see what they said, then pass it to curve to mesh. Using a quadrilateral curve with twice the radius as the profile. I'm not exactly sure how that should work out. Isn't that just, I mean, that should just give me the outside of that triangle, right? I mean, I guess I can just do in the end curve to mesh. Do the convex hull again. Why even a quadrilateral? Oh boy. Oh, for that? Just keep it like this? To make the spline not cyclic. Ah, I see the point now. Yeah, okay. It's kind of cheeky to do that. I'm not sure if that really gives me the. I mean, I can just to see it, I can just quickly do it. Set spline cyclic off, and then have it like this. That was the idea, right? Let's just take a look how that looks when it's a little bit cleaned up by the convex hull, because I do need the ends to be filled in. Yeah, like this. Oops. But I think I'm just really gonna try and do the remesh workflow with points to volume, volume to mesh, just to see how that works. Because like this, I do have a triangle segment of an arc segment of a circle that's filled in. So that should already work. I'm not really sure why the curve parameter starts at that random position, to be honest. I would have expected it to be on either the x or the y axis at 0. And let's do it more like this. Wait. Oh, it doesn't wrap. Can I make this wrap? Nah. I'm just gonna keep it like this for now. Remeshing frees you from worrying about topology. Yeah, that's true. We've been using the points to volume and volume to mesh workflow for a bunch of things in SpriteFright. The initial example that we were using it for was the moss on the trees, to create a base mesh with points that are distributed. And yeah, that's basically why it was designed in the first place, to have this workflow in there. So yeah, I like it too. Let's see how it works. Distribute points, just a whole bunch of points like this, maybe more. And then points to volume. And volume to mesh. the radius, we can make it like this and give it a little bit more resolution. Also a bunch more points. And is this ever going to be smooth? Let's just look at it without the overlay and make it shade smooth in the end. It's going to be a little bit crumbly and crusty, but that's fine. Maybe I'll even take down the radius more and do it a little bit differently. Let's see. This is nice. Unfortunately, there's no smooth node. There is a patch for that, but I think because of the fields, the whole fields refactoring thing, it also got pushed back a little bit more. But yeah, okay. Now I need the parameters to actually make the displacement work a little bit. I'm just going to actually delete these things because I think this is going to work. Let's take a look at the topology. We have a nice and high amount of vertices that we can push around to make the displacement work. Why don't you just go with shader nodes and mass? I wanted to use geometry nodes, and I'm still going to do the same thing now because in the end you can at this point do a whole lot of the things you can do with shader nodes with geometry nodes as well because of the field workflow. Yeah, for smoothing or relaxing, that's going to come at some point. It's even going to be able, because smoothing the geometry is basically just smoothing the position attribute. So the same node should eventually just be able to smooth any field, any attribute on the geometry. So that's going to be cool to be able to actually like blur attributes that way by smoothing them over the topology of the mesh. Which, yeah, position smoothing is basically just the smooth modifier as you know it. Okay, finally, going the math way of making a little bit of displacement happen on this slice of pizza. For that, I'm going to use some set position to do the actual offset of the geometry and a position input to get the values that I need. And then some vector math. So now I think I'm just going to multiply this by 110 to be able to eliminate the Z component. And then get the length. And that way I just get information over the distance from the center, regardless of the height or the thickness of this thing. And then a map range node. And then I'm going to start, because the radius at the maximum, at the outermost points of the crust is going to be approximately 1 plus 0.04, because that's the radius of the points that are distributed here. And yeah, 1 is probably going to be fine. And then I'm going to start at like 0.8. And then make this an offset to displace the geometry along the Z components. Like this. This is obviously not what I want. But we get some nice crust. Just a map of where the crust is supposed to be. And then let's use the curves. Oh boy, there's a lot of curves now. I don't think we have float curves at this point, right? Ooh, we do. Wow, that's a new thing. That's nice. And then I can just shape the crust beautifully like this. Okay, 1.1 maybe. But obviously I don't want the crust to be lifted up like this. I want it, this only to really take effect at the top side of the slice of pizza. So I'm also going to use the Z component of the position. So let's separate this. And yet just multiply the result with a math node. Like kind of like this. But I'm going to start from 0 to, what's the height of this? Like 0.04. So 0.04. Perfect. Oh God. That is a slice of pizza with a very nice crust. But this is a bit too much. So to have a little bit more precision, I'm just going to multiply this thing by like 0.2. 0.1. There you go. Okay, I've been not really looking at the chat. I think if you change the distribute points to Poisson disk, you can get better results with less points. Yes, I'm not exactly sure how much that will help with the performance. It should probably help because the most expensive stuff is this here, but the volume is just going to be the volume is just voxel based anyways. And once that's generated, I think this is the most important step, actually generating the mesh out of the volume, and that shouldn't really change. But yeah, you're right, with the Poisson disk, I can control nicely how densely they are distributed. So if I have the radius of 0.04, I can just also put that in here. Oh, maybe half of it. And then it's going to use less points. Wait. Let's just do both and compare them. It's also the nice thing with procedural stuff. You can just switch things around and see how it changes the behavior. Oh yeah, of course, now because it's throwing away points, I just need more. Let's try 100,000. It's not that different. I don't know. I think I'm just gonna keep it as this. We can still increase the points, but yeah, like I said, the most expensive step, as far as I know, is creating the mesh. And right now, still everything is very nice and smooth. As you can see, if I change things around, they still are very responsive. So I don't really want to bother with the performance of this at this stage because I think it's still fine. Later on, I'm probably going to increase the resolution of this. And then I'm going to need more points. But that's fine. Just for rendering in the end. Okay, so we already got some kind of a slice of pizza. Just no toppings or sauce or anything at all. Gosh darn it, I was gonna do a pizza. I guess it's very, it's like the most natural step because I've mentioned it before, but it is the most objectively best triangle there is. Okay. Now, variation. I'm thinking of either now doing a little bit of variation in the dough, keeping that for later. And I do want it a little bit more smooth, to be honest. Also, it is maybe a little bit too high still. Oh god. What have I done? Unfortunately, the keys here are not all working. I think it's due to the setup that I have here, where we have a specific streaming room, the Blender Studio, and I'm not used to this setup. God, where is it? And the home button doesn't really do anything, which I would usually use to jump to where I am in the node tree. Can I? This doesn't work. This is so sad. I think it should technically work if I open a new shader, a new node editor. Nope. God damn it. Is this how it ends? View, frame all? Shift C? Oh God. When was... Huh. I always used home. Did that change? Thank you. Yeah, the numpad unfortunately doesn't seem to do anything on this keyboard. But yeah, thanks. We got back. All is fine. Okay. Let's use some noises, because that's one of the nice things since fields. You can really go crazy with all sorts of textures that you just do displacement with. That wasn't really all that easy before with the attribute-based system. But yeah, let's just take a look at how we can make this work. So I'm going to just do another displacement step based on a noise texture, and I'm going to use the normal as the displacement direction, and then use, oops, wrong node, use a vector math node to scale this with the texture. Like this. And then a float curve to control the profile as an offset. Oh God. And then it is a little bit too strong. Ah, and it's plugged into the vector. That's not great. Yeah, so if you do this, it doesn't automatically connect the value on both sides, which is not great. Should note that down and point that out to somebody. Float curve. Because the factor is just going to be controlling how much this actually has an effect, and that's not the point. Okay, for now I'm actually going to take this back down to the previous settings, so I actually have a little bit more... Oh no. A little bit more responsive behavior. 0.02. I'm probably also going to give this a little bit of a negative displacement. I'm going to subtract like 0.5. And I think this type of displacement I only really want to have on the inside. That's going to be the sauce. Well, actually, there's going to be a whole different bunch of displacements. So on the crust, I want to have some more like spherical bulbs. On the side, side could be relatively clean cut. On the bottom, it should be also like a little bit of noise displacement, kind of like this. And then here there's going to be sauce and ingredients. And for that, I'm going to need a whole bunch of different masks to be able to selectively affect the different areas. And for that, maybe at this point, I want to take a look at just getting those masks. So with the position, which is actually captured here. Ooh. Capture. I'm going to create the masks. And the point why I'm capturing the position here is because I want to use these masks in a bunch of different places later on, and they shouldn't be affected by the changes that I make to the position. So I need to actually capture the position at the point that it has right here. So the attributes that I created, the masks that I created as fields are not reliant on the dynamic position, but on the captured position that I have here. I don't know how much people here in the chat have looked into the specific unique attributes of how fields work, but that's an important part to keep in mind, that the fields that you get like this are always live and changing with the geometry. If you get an attribute like this alongside a geometry, then it's always reliant on this geometry output. And yeah, that's important to keep in mind. So I already evaluated a mask here, which actually could just use that same captured position from here. And then I'm going to be able to reuse that mask later on. So let's just make a little bit more space and call this the crust. Hang on. Crust. And oh yeah, let's make a very quick setup to actually see the fields, because since relatively recently, Eevee also supports displaying attributes, generic attributes, which is really, really cool. I'm just gonna do it like this. So this setup just reads out the viewer attribute, which I'm just going to create within the geometry node tree as an output. So I'm just going to take, yeah, why not? Just take a vector and call it viewer. And then everything that I just connect to this viewer is going to be displayed in the Eevee rendered viewport. Or is it? It should be. It better be. Oh, the material is not applied. Of course. Set material, viewer, and it's black, which is good. Yes, so now we see the crust vector. As you can see, as I increase this here, it gets more and more blue, and it's all real time, and we can just see what's happening to the masks, which is amazing. At some point, it's just going to be part of the viewer, but as far as I know, that's not the case yet. But it's just amazing that this Eevee preview even made it into 3.0. That's super useful. Can we copy this file when you're done? Yes, on the Blender Studio, I'm going to upload the files once I'm done. Yeah, Arendelle made a bunch of tutorials on fields in general. I haven't checked out the videos, but I know that Arundel makes amazing content, so maybe check that out. Okay, now that we finally have the setup of the masks, I can actually take a look at whether or not I'm even creating the right masks. Let's see. So this had the map range here. And that map range is just connected to the output. Looks like this. Ah, yeah, that was just the top. That's actually pretty useful though. Let's just make a thing like this and call it top. What? What happened? I thought you could just, can't you just rename reroutes? There you go. Top. Amazing. And then this thing, let's just connect that to the viewer as well, is the crust. Kinda. So right now that's not an actual mask, but it's also a gradient that just goes from 0 to 1 along the crust, but that's fine. Let's name this crust. Oh god. Why did it still have this as... Ah, it's just selected, it's not actually active. There you go, crust. Just put this here for later use. And then, if we need anything else, we can just do a bunch of maths. Yes. Maybe the bottom, just as a separate thing. Because I also want a gradient for that. So I'll use the same Z component and just go to negative 0.04. And that's then gonna be the bottom. Output like this. Bottom. Oops. Top. Crust. And if I need something more specific, I can just create it with a math node. Like the top crust. There you go. Okay, now bottom. Let's just make some displacement. I'm going to take whatever I created before, add another multiply node, and multiply it with the bottom mask. And look at the result. Did it work? Not quite, it looks like. I am not exactly sure why. Okay, we're taking the normal. Oh! Passing the wrong geometry. That can't work. There you go. Now we have a displacement mask that is specifically driving the displacement at the bottom. Nice. Will this stream be a daily thing during Nodevember? Not quite daily, probably. More like every 2 days, because the prompts are now this year for 2 days. But yeah, the plan is to do every single prompt in a streamed fashion. I hope I can keep that working out and also keep the quality that I had from previous years, because it is a little bit, everything is a little bit slower first because I'm using geometry nodes, which I'm not so familiar with as with shading nodes. And then second, because it's streamed and I'm trying to make coherent thoughts that I'm also verbalizing on stream, which is not the easiest thing to do. But we'll see how it works. Okay. I'll keep this as the viewer around. And call this the bottom displacement. And now we can change the properties around of this a little bit. I want to have it more a bit more like this, and then change the scale to be a little bit less frequent, I think. But maybe the details I can later on still look at in more precisely when I have higher resolution. Or I can just try it out right now. Let's see. It is really amazing to be able to just see this stuff in real time while you're changing the node tree. Like comparing it with shading nodes, it's really quite incredible. That looks kind of alright. Nobody's gonna see the bottom anyway, so why do I even care? I think the resolution is fine. Maybe I'll bump this up a little bit to get a little bit of a smoother result. The side is worrying me a little bit. Maybe I can make that work now. Yeah, I think I'll also create a side mask. So the side mask is just, let's see, also going to take the same Z component, but use the absolute. And then basically doing the same thing, running out of space here, as these masks here, but going the opposite direction, 0.04 until 0. And that is the crust. That is the side. Let's take a look with the viewer. Side. There you go. Finally, things work. Wait. This is not a side. But this is. So let's see. I will take the top. This thing. And subtract it. Maybe I have to map range it more, but let's just take a look at how this looks initially. Wait. Oh, no, not the top. Crust, of course. Okay, here it doesn't work. It's not going all the way to 1. Ah, yes. 1.04. 1.03. Oops, sorry. Oh, the stream was... is it good now? It's recovered? Okay, good. Yeah, it's a bit unfortunate. I'm not sure what's happening. Stream seems to drop a few frames here and there. I'll definitely look into maybe if I can change the settings for the next stream, but right now I don't think I can do much. As long as for the most part it's fine, then I'm just going to accept it how it is. Now it says excellent connection, so I'll just take that by word. Okay, to get a different shape here, I'm just going to plug in another math operation, set the power, and do it like this, and then everything's fine. That's a crust mask, side mask. Good. Looks a little bit like a mess, but we do have this nice set of masks that we can just use at any point. Hang on, actually, I should make a node group out of this. Let's try and actually keep this a little bit organized, because I should, in theory, not really need to go back in here and do anything. I can just use it as it is, as a node group. So let's just go one level lower. Okay, what is this? Result is the bottom. What is value? The viewer. Right. I don't need that. Let's get rid of it. Bottom. Top side crust. Top side crust. Yeah, I always use math nodes for everything. Sometimes it's, or usually it's not like proper math, it's just very simple operations to get what I want approximately. Wait, wasn't this the side? Did I not actually connect it to the right thing? Guess I didn't. Okay. Okay, this is a bit of a mess, but nobody's ever gonna look at this again, so it's fine. Now we have a nice pizza slice dough. Good enough. Even though this is still part of it, kinda. But yeah, now we have a little bit nicer of a setup because it's very compartmentalized and more clear what's going on. What was this? Position, it's always good, whatever. Okay, now displacement. So at the bottom, you have this. And then let's go for the crust. For the crust, I think I'm gonna look into using a Voronoi texture because I do want these nice bulby, bubbly shapes. Frame drops still. Yeah, the breadcrumbs could be more useful if maybe I renamed this stuff a little bit. So this is gonna be the pizza slice. And then, what? Oh, the name of the modifier. Pizza. And this, let's just stick with pizza slice dot base shape. That makes sense. There you go. Very nice. And the object is empty, as all things should be. Animation is playing. Thank you. It's a lot of unnecessary overhead. Maybe I should change it from spacebar. Oh, it's not spacebar. What was it then? Shift spacebar. I should maybe copy the settings from my own setup over here so I actually know what I'm doing. Okay. Enough fooling around, back to the displacement. Like I said, Voronoi texture. I want to create some bubbles on the crust. So let's take the crust and already use a math node to actually multiply this. I'm just gonna make a new set position node to have a nice nice order of operations. And use, let's make it full screen. Use the Crust for multiplication. And then, of course, the normal again. And for that, I think I'm actually gonna make this a little bit more fancy. I'll do it later. One step after another. So this needs to be in a different range, because by default the Voronoi texture creates this kind of a thing. Oh god, let's mute it. And I want the bubbles to be basically the opposite way around. So from 1 to 0, and then power to change the profile around P. And then we get something like this. A little much. Doesn't really work. Let's use a curve. Float curve. To replace the power. So the power was just going to give it a nicer shape, but instead I'm just going to do the same thing manually with the curve. So the center of the dots from the Voronoi texture is at 0. I want to have that at 1. And then make it more like this. And actually, let's just make it a smooth F1. And just crank it up so we can actually see what's happening here. Okay, looks kind of interesting, but not exactly what I need. Oh god. This is not the greatest topology here, to be honest. Oh yeah, also I only wanted to be at the top side, or mostly at least. So I'm just going to multiply this mask with this one. It's getting somewhere. And I think I'm actually, because no matter what I do, there's going to be these artifacts, I'm going to add a smooth modifier. Because I don't think I can really work around that. I mean, I guess one thing that you could always do would be to just do the same step of distributing points and turning them into a remesh thing in the very end. But I would like to, oh god, I would like to work around that. Okay, this crust is maybe a little bit too much. A little bit too high. Oh, sorry, wrong thing. I have to actually go in here. That's a bit nicer. Also, I will change how this mask is used for the crust. To already started earlier on, so 0.5. Okay. And then I think I'm going to try something interesting. Maybe it's not maybe it's not the best idea. But I was going to make this displacement not in a single step, but instead in a bunch of steps. It's a nice method of creating some like organic seeming growth to something. I can just quickly show how that looks. It looks a bit messy right now, the node tree, but I can clean it up later. And then offset. I'll just use the same field input for all the different things. But because this is a dynamic normal, it's going to re-evaluate the normal of the mesh on each of these geometry nodes. So it's always going to displace the mesh along the current normal. So all of these vectors are actually different and depending on the current normal of the geometry. And that way, after a bunch of these steps, yeah, it doesn't look great right now because we have these artifacts, but you get this kind of a growth effect. Maybe I can make that a little bit more clear even by duplicating the whole thing. As you can see, it's already everything is already slowing down a little bit, the evaluation of the node tree, because we're getting into the more heavy territory right now. I have to optimize this stuff a little bit later. Let's see. Yeah. Looks a little bit like there's some really gnarly fungus growing on top of the slice of pizza, so that's not necessarily the best thing to have, but it is interesting. Maybe you can actually make it work somehow. Thing is, because of the way I'm generating the geometry, and it looks a little bit jagged right here, I don't have smooth normals at all. And for this method, I kind of need smooth normals because every little crease in the geometry is going to be really increased with this method. And if I have any creases beforehand that I don't need, that I don't want, then it's just going to be amplified by a lot. Are you using 3D noise? The slowdown might be due to that. Oh, the Voronoi 3D. Yeah, you're right. That's always a little bit more heavy. I'm thinking about whether or not I need 3D noise here. But actually, I think for this thing I don't even need Voronoi. Because of the effect that I'm describing, that kind of makes it grow a little bit, I also get more bulbous geometry with just regular noise. Like this. I'll admit it's not ideal, but maybe we can make it work. So let's scale maybe down. What am I gonna do about this? Maybe I can change something about how the geometry is created. Okay, sorry. This, in theory, maybe the adaptivity could help a little bit. Let me just turn off, oh God. Turn off all of these steps. And take a look inside. Yeah, this might actually help, but I do also just lose a lot of the geometry that I desperately need. I mean, I can subdivide it later on, but then it's probably just gonna be worse. Gotta admit, this is a little bit annoying. Let's just see what happens if I subdivide. Nothing great. So, yeah, multiple things that would be nice to have here would be either a smooth node that I can just do within the node tree, because right now I can only do it afterwards. Oh, I think that, yeah, the smoothing might also slow everything down a little bit. Or a weld modifier to just eliminate unnecessary detail. Because these things, like these spikes in the detail here, could just be removed by merging a bunch of points. But yeah, we're gonna make it work without that for now. What about low adaptivity? Doesn't really help. Oh well. Threshold. I guess just increasing the points should help here. Not really. I'm thinking about just actually using the smooth modifier by splitting this into 2 and having the smooth in between. Because it does really seem to help quite a lot with getting this into a very nice and smooth topology. And then afterwards I could use the normals. But does it defeat the purpose of making this nodes only? Kinda does. What if you do mesh to volume and back to mesh again? That's how this is already created. Oh, you mean just at this point? I think it's probably gonna make it worse, to be honest. I can try it out. Mesh to volume. Oh, wait. It's volume to mesh. Do we... Oh, yeah, there's no mesh to volume yet. It's points to volume. Yeah, I don't think that's really gonna help. Tweaking the points to volume node. I mean, you can only really tweak the voxel amount or the density might help. Having a lower density. It does seem better. Okay, I think I'm just gonna leave it at that for now and keep going. I can still try and improve this later on. I will, though, keep the smoothing in the end. And I think I will just end up creating an additional geometry node modifier to actually add toppings. Because this is already this is already looking relatively nice. I think that's the way to go. Do you get any use of the spreadsheet? It really depends on the use case. I don't use it all that much, but what is really, really useful, I think, is just having the information of what types of components and how much basically memory usage your geometry is using at a certain point in your node tree, because you can really clearly see, okay, how many control points does my curve have, how many vertices do I have right now, and you can just look at that in every step of the node tree, just with the viewer node. Which, why does it not work? The shortcuts. But yeah, that's the main point I use it for. And looking at values, you're right, isn't always super useful. At some point, it's going to be a little bit more clear, I think, when there's more viewport interactivity with being able to select specific points in the spreadsheet and then have synced selection in the viewport. As far as I know, that is planned for at some point. And that's going to be really useful. But yeah, I'm relatively happy with the shape of this pizza slice, just in terms of the dough. I think I'm going to maybe make this a little bit less perfectly circular, because right now it's very, very clearly a circle. And for that, I'm just going to go in here and change basically the in range, the from range for the crust with a noise. And the noise texture is just going to, it's just going to use the position, I think. Yeah, this is the captured position that we used earlier on, so this is totally fine. Whenever we use the mask, it's still going to be the same because it's using the captured position. Okay, and then I will create a value input from the current 0.8 crust factor. I'll just turn this off for now because it's causing a little bit of a lag with my node tree creation. And then add a bunch of math nodes to control the offset from this. I subtract 0.5 to get the values of the noise around 0. And I multiply them by a factor to control how much I want the noise to affect the rest, and then I add it on top. And that's going to be my new input. Okay, let's just turn off all of this crazy displacement because it doesn't really help right now. And you can see the noise is taking effect. It looks very, very strange right now, but that can be easily changed. This just needs to be a 2D noise. Let's see. Smaller factor. Maybe like this. It's gonna add another vector math node to offset this. Yeah, kind of like this. Nothing too crazy, just a little bit of variation. Okay, the crust is really going insane, to be honest. Yeah, now I can still change this value around to have the pizza just be like half crust. Or with a relatively thin crust. It's still very, very thick, but it doesn't take as much from the pizza. Okay, maybe I should tone it down a tiny bit. I think this was the amount, the height of the crust. It doesn't really make a difference. The blobs really carry the thickness of the crust. And that's controlled outside, so let's just maybe tone this down. Ah, it's the bottom. It's the bottom displacement. Crust displacement. There you go. It's not enough though. It needs to be a little bit oh god. Maybe a bit much. That's what I meant to do. I'll just keep it like this. It's all procedural. We can make it better later. Can we merge the vertices of the cube to form a triangle? You mean like, oh god. Like this? Procedurally? Merging is not really a thing yet, as far as I know, in nodes. I mean, at some point it will be possible. You can scale down the face specifically on one axis to get a similar result, but then you'll not be able yet to actually merge these because there's not a weld node yet. There's the weld modifier, but yeah. Good. Okay, I'm saving. You got a pizza slice with a very, very nice shape. There's not any sauce on there yet, but I think I'm just gonna put that into a separate step. I like having a smooth topology first, because yeah, just to remind you, this is how it looks without smoothing, which is not amazing. But yeah, smoothing helps. Okay. Pretty sure the lag is due to the 3D noise still. I don't think so, honestly. From what I've seen, it doesn't really make that much of a difference to have 3D and 2D noise. The thing is, I mean, it could be fine here. Does it help? I mean, it is a lot of geometry at this point, and there's a bunch of steps of displacing this, so yeah. But yeah, just so you've seen it now. This is a relatively nice way of making like more organic growth of displacement and not just having a single step, but making more like this. Because the equivalent of doing this amount of displacement in a single step would be... I'll just show it to you very quickly. Doing... multiplying it with 0.2 instead of 0.02 and just doing it once, and then the whole thing looks like this. Oh god, like this. And as you can see, it just looks like a very regular noise displacement, but the blobs don't really have this nice round shape to them. And it doesn't really create any creases. And opposed to that, if you take a look at the iterative displacement that I created before, it creates these creases. And it just looks more blobby. Which is what I'm looking for. Okay. That seems to be the smoothing. Yeah, the smoothing is a bunch of steps, but it is relatively important to do the smoothing. Okay, I'll just keep this on 3D because I kind of liked this blob here on the side that I created before. And move on. We have the base of the pizza slice there. Pizza slice dot dough. And now we can move on to toppings. Or actually, for working on this, it might be nice to Oh, this is on 250 iterations. I thought I had it on 25. 25 doesn't seem to be enough. Oh, Jesus. We'll leave it like that. But yeah, for working on the toppings, I'll just probably turn this off, and then it should be more responsive. Maybe I'll even make a slider in here to be able to decrease the resolution. Sorry. So I'll add a math node. I'll add a mix RGB node just to expose the factor. Default is going to be 1. And then I'll get rid of it. And the benefit I get from that is that the input of the group now has this nice slider UI, which you don't get when you just connect the input to a regular math node in the first place. And that is going to control both the density of the points, which is going to be 100,000 at the maximum, and also the voxel amount, which is going to be 256 at the maximum. And then we're able to nicely just scale down the resolution of this. And as you can see, everything is much more responsive. It doesn't look great, but it really helps. Yeah, so I'll just keep it on 0.5. And then we can focus on the toppings without having to worry all that much about the performance. Can the smooth modifier use a geonode attribute for the vertex group? You're thinking of just having it on the crust? I think it can. The issue, I mean, it's not really an issue, but you have to kind of hack your way into that. I think the way you do it is by actually creating a vertex group, and then let me see, outputting to that vertex group, but it has to exist beforehand. So if I just put this to the crust, wait, shouldn't it exist? Crust. Well, doesn't look like it worked. I thought it might work, but I'm thinking maybe the issue is that I don't have base geometry. So nothing is actually assigned to this. Let's see. No. Oh, sorry, I thought this would work, but apparently it doesn't. But yeah, it is definitely planned to add this functionality. Or, I mean, ideally the smooth modifier is just going to become a node, and then you don't really have to worry about that issue, because you can just have all of these things within the node editor itself. But yeah, let's move on. New modifier. So we have the pizza dough, then it's getting smoothed, and then we have a new geometry nodes modifier. That's going to be the toppings. Now, what are you going to put on there? Probably some nice salami, which, as we know, is just a bunch of cylinders that are scattered on top. Oh yeah, of course, for all of this, now we need to actually use an input for where the toppings are going to be, which you get from the first modifier. So I had the mask for the crust and for the top, and from that I'm just going to create a mask for where the toppings are going to be. It might work because the output in the group output node is not set to the right domain and data type. That is a good point. Let me give it one more try. I mean, this is showing me a bunch of different domains and data types though. Let's see. Point float, that should be fine. Unsure. What if I add it here? Vertex float. Name collision, yeah, that's fine. Nothing. Unsure. I'll keep it out. What Blender version? This is 3.0 beta. Yes, I might at some point during this month just switch to the alpha version because new stuff is going to be added at some point. But right now there's not much of a difference between the versions, so I'm sticking to the beta currently. Okay. That didn't work, but that's fine. New output is going to be the toppings mask. And for that, we'll need a couple of masks. First, the top. And then, I can just, yeah, let's do that. The crust with a map range. And that map range, I want to see what I'm looking at. It's going to go from 0.01 to 0, and mapping it to 0, like this. And then I'm multiplying it with this, and then get this. Looks about right. Maybe I will also change this around to really be on the top rather than on the side, like this, with a power node. And then the whole thing I output into a new output. That was the crust. This is going to be the toppings mask. This was the viewer. Like that. Yeah, that should be fine. And then we go into the next modifier. Apply this to a new toppings attribute, which is going to be the input for where to scatter the toppings, of course. And for that, I'm just going to use the just created attribute here. And if we look at the points, density is going to be maximum 1, so I'm going to change that with a multiplication. Oh, I should use the input mesh, of course. There you go. Let's merge it together with the input. There you go. It's gonna be a nice amount of salami. Maybe use poisson disk to actually create some distance between the salami pieces. Yeah, later on I'm probably gonna need some bouillon to not have the salami pieces go over the edge. Okay, this is using different properties. Yeah, it's nice enough. Should also expose the seed parameters, so later on we'll be able to just change this around and look at the different results. Minimum distance should be something around like, oh yeah, this is not up to scale. The thickness was like 4 centimeters. This is a huge pizza. So maybe this should be like 0.05. Oh, even more. 0.15? Too much. Looks about right. It's probably easier if it's smaller pieces. We'll see how it works out. Okay. And then I'm going to instance the stuff on top, instance on points. And oh boy, this is just a huge cylinder right now. More like this. Let's create some more geometry on the inside. That wasn't correct. Yeah, I have to use the points only and not the whole geometry. There you go. Fantastic. Oh yeah, right, the resolution. Let's also... Yeah, I'm gonna also add stretchy cheese if possible. That would be nice. Yeah, I'm not really sure. Usually when I was doing Nodevember, I was also animating my entries, and having some animation with stretchy cheese would be amazing. I don't know how much I can make that work, but I'll see. Pizza made out of salami, yes. Every single atom of the pizza is a piece of salami. What was I going to do? Right, I was going to expose this resolution factor in the modifier itself, and also I want to make this dependent on the viewport. So in the render, I always want to have full resolution quality. But in the viewport, I want to have it be controlled by this slider. So what I'm going to use is a switch node that uses the state of the viewport. And the type that it's switching on is the boolean, not the boolean, the float. And in case it is the viewport, then I will want to use this, and otherwise it's going to be 1. And that way I can just add a camera to prove what I'm doing. And a point light. Alright, the material. As you can see, low resolution in the viewport, and rendering high resolution. It's all nice and smooth. But also the crap. The salami looks completely different, of course. We'll figure it out. It's gonna be fine. Okay. good. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what I'm gonna do with a layer of cheese. I guess this could all, like the top half on the topping side could all just be cheese. And then I can add a little bit of an edge on the outside where it's actually similar to the crust, like growing with the displacement. So maybe I'll put that before the salami. So I'm gonna do the same thing as before. I have the normal input. I use a noise. I do some vector math. And I set the position. Scale it. Hello. Scale this with the noise. Add a float curve for manual control. Yes. And then I use the toppings mask to mask the thing. Okay. Now actually use it. Oh god. A little bit extreme. Another factor, 0.1, let's see. Ah, man, that happens way too much. Yeah, we gotta do something about that at some point. That it's automatically connecting the factor on the input of the float curve. Okay. And then same trick as before, bunch of iterations. So maybe we get away with less now. Just organize it like this. Now it's probably way too much. Yeah. That's quite cheesy. I feel like maybe if I think I can maybe manipulate the way this is displacing with some vector curves to be able to cheat the cheese around the edge, if that makes sense. Probably doesn't, but that's fine. Let's see. Vector curve. Oh, what? There you go. And for the, yes, so when the cheese gets to the edge, it peaks around. It's also going to displace towards the bottom side because at some point when it displaces to the side, there's a certain component of the normal which it's using for the direction of the displacement that goes downwards. And if I just boost the influence that the normal has when it's going down, like this, it should in theory help. Wait. Going to increase also the extremity of the y and x components, and then scale down the z when it's positive. Maybe it's a bit too much. What if I just look at this? Oh god. I'm not sure that works. But also I need more resolution to see what's happening. Oh, wrong factor. Did I not expose this? Ah, here. Let's give this a name because that right now doesn't really help. This is the viewport resolution. Let's put it to 0.75 or all the way to 1, actually. Yeah, that doesn't work. I'm afraid we might need more smoothing, which is a shame. Okay, let me look at the chat again. I do feel like I let him down a dead end with the remesh suggestion though. No, I think the remeshing actually helps. I mean, smoothing will be needed anyways, I think, as long as you're trying to do some normal displacement, because the normals are just going to be jagged, no matter what you do. Well, now that I think of, it's fine. Which is, what's the shortcut for just dragging and connecting nodes? Dragging and connecting like this? Because that's automatic, there's no shortcut for this. This just happens automatically. If you want to get a node out of a connection, like I did just now, you just hold down the Alt key and then drag it out. Okay. There's still these salami pieces hanging out. Yeah, they're using the wrong geometry. It doesn't really help. I'll get rid of the salamis for now and try and make the cheese work first. I feel like this does have the potential to work. I kind of just want to give it a couple more smoothing operations. Kind of feels a little bit like a dirty hack of just throwing smoothing on top of everything, but I mean, it works. This doesn't look very delicious though, I gotta admit. What if I just drag the smoothing all the way to the end? Ah, this does look nice. But I'm losing that crease that I really want. Maybe that has to be an additional step. Kind of like it like this. Maybe we'll just end up having a pizza margherita and and that's it. That would be a shame. But I am at least happy that this kind of looks like it's working out and it doesn't look too bad. Let's see what we can change about this more specifically. What about changing the size of this? I do really want to have it go more downwards on the edge, But I might actually have to go in and do that more manually with another mask. I think I'm just going to have more creative freedom, just expose all of the different masks that I created before. So I have the crust, the toppings. Let's just get more of them. There was the side that's just not used anywhere right now. And then the bottom, the top. This should be fine. Side. Okay, am I missing things in the chat? Okay, people are already helping each other out with the Node Wrangler. What feature are you waiting for the most? It's a relatively difficult question because I'm relatively newly diving into actually using fields. Finally, right now, I would love a smooth node to be able to actually just do it in the tree. Yeah, smooth node, extrude node, those would be nice. Then also, now that we actually have the EV preview, I imagine it would be relatively simple to expose a functionality where the viewer can actually also display fields as an overlay in solid viewport. That would be amazing. To just like if you are in weight paint mode, you have this overlay, and that would just be for the field that you're currently looking at, just with a shortcut. That would be great. But right now I'm just amazed how many things it actually made it into 3.0. Like just the EV display, that's really cool. I mean, you could still use shader nodes on top of the actual geometry. Yes, but that's not even that useful because you can't really do much more with shader nodes. Like you're still bound to the tessellation of the geometry. And for your displacement, you can't create more points. Also, I kind of wanted to keep it to only geometry nodes for this, because otherwise it's even more overkill. And just have it in like clay renders maybe. I'll have to see how I want to present my work in the end, but I think I'm just going to keep it down to mostly geometry nodes. Seems like set position could have an iteration slider. That's not a bad idea for the offset. I mean, for the position input it doesn't make sense, but for the offset, yeah. But rather than that, I think we should rather just have loops in general. So it's not only for this one specific node, but you can have other operations as well that you just put into a loop, which is also planned to have at some point. Okay, let's keep going a little bit more. What was I doing? The side, right. I wanted to get that cheese around the edge. For that, I create a new input. To get the side mask. Oh god, it's not responsive at all anymore. Let's turn this down to 0.5. Turn off the smoothing. It does look kind of horrendous this way, and it's not really a good representation of what it's gonna look like in the end, but all better than nothing. Side. Right, and then I'm going to use a combination of the side mask and the top mask to get that nice edge on the cheese to go a little bit more down. It should hopefully work. Yes, I'm just going to use a map range node and multiply this thing with that. And it's going to take the side and the toppings, multiply those. And then I map it from 0 to 1 to 1 to 2 or something. It doesn't quite seem to work. Wait, what is going wrong? Let's take a look at the viewer. Yeah, that's a thing. Right now, this is really a workaround, creating this kind of viewer output. And that could easily be a feature now that Eevee is able to display fields, display arbitrary attributes on the geometry. But in theory, this should already work. If I turn this back on, go into Eevee, and then expose this. Just keep the reroute around. Yeah, that doesn't look right. So let's see, the toppings. That's correct. Side. What is that? Looks like I exposed the wrong thing. Let's see. Side. Comes straight out of here. And that comes from here. I remember this being correct. I'm not sure what's going on. Is it not using... It is using the captured position, because otherwise it would make sense that it fails. But this is all using the captured position. So I'm not quite sure. Olives on pizza? Nah, not a big fan. Not as bad as pineapple, but not a fan of olives. Okay. Let's try and debug this. So here I'll just plug the side into the viewer. And indeed it looks like this. This doesn't change it, so that is fine. Oh, Pablo has a live stream. Thanks for sticking around and making sure that things go right. Looks like it's nothing's going too bad, even though some frames are being dropped. Have a good stream, Pablo. I'm gonna stick around a little bit longer and try and make this work. Okay, this is using the side. And this was the absolute Z, mapped from 0.4 to 0 to 1 and 2, 0 and 1, using the crust. Is it actually the crust? Yes. Powering it and subtracting that. Ah, that's the issue. Okay. I think the issue is just because of the viewport resolution. No? Okay, there we go. That's better. I guess the issue was already happening before, but I didn't really use the size for anything, so it was fine. Okay. Flag's gonna stick around, that's nice. A pineapple slider with a multiplier of 0. Yeah, it's not a bad idea. Giving those filthy pineapple people hopes of having pineapple on their pizza. But it was all a lie. Okay. Losing a little bit the thread of what's going on here, but we'll get it back. This was the salami. We'll revisit that later. This was the cheese. But that's only the first iteration. Because this was supposed to push it to the side more. Let's see if that works. Not quite yet, it seems. Ah, there you go. Kind of works. Let's see if that holds up with higher resolution. Oh god. At least it's really only affecting the sides because I have the right mask now. Let's look at it with higher resolution and some smoothing. Oh. And it's all gone. Well, I guess that's the issue when we have relatively low resolution, because it does just thin out to the side. Like the resolution here is very high because we have so much displacement going on here. This faces just get larger and larger. But I don't really want to increase the overall resolution all that much. One thing I could try, just to see if it does anything, is to throwing a subdivision surface of one iteration in the middle. Of course, it's gonna make everything super slow. Maybe it helps. It's a bit much. Oh, why is it freaking out? It doesn't look so great. I mean, I feel like it does kind of help overall if I maybe turn this back down. Yeah, and then rely more on the subdivision. Unsure. But it is kind of getting somewhere at least. Another remesh is surely the solution. I don't think so. Not this time. Not for the cheese. Do you use any primitive to base that on, or is it everything generated with GeoNodes? Currently, you can't really generate geometry from scratch. In theory, that is possible with the concept of fields, but that's not really a thing yet. One thing you can do is distribute a bunch of points and then use the convex hull node to create the geometry from that. But yeah, I'm I'm here using, for the bases, a, what even was it? Was it the curve? Yeah, the curve. And then creating the individual triangle, distributing points on that, turning the points into volume, and then the volume into a mesh. To do some sort of remesh, some sort of fake solidify kind of a thing. Okay, I think I'm going to decrease the geometry here and actually use the subdivision. But instead of doing it in the second modifier, I'll just do it as part of the first one. Subdivision surface. Like around here. And then lower this by like half. So 50k points with a resolution of 128 instead of 256. The cheese is not really doing what I want though. I think I gotta go for another approach for that. So what could I do? Okay, I do have an idea. Thing is, that should probably be done after smoothing. Yeah, I think I'm just going to add more geometry nodes modifiers. It's a bit of a shame that I can't just do everything in one modifier, because I have to keep the smoothing step in between. But that's just how it is. Do it with curves. Yeah, like stringy cheese would be nice with curves. What I can do is manipulate the... yeah, actually that would be nice to have like the slice of pizza be... Oh, I can't move it. Because it's too heavy. To have it like lifted up and then some cheese dropping down. At least I kind of want to do that, rather than having like thousands of toppings on top. Just having a nice slice of pizza with cheese dropping down. And for that, curves are not a bad idea. Yes. Yeah, right now I'm just thinking of what I could do. Maybe the cheese would be an additional piece of geometry. But yeah, doing these kind of procedural things is always just trial and error, and then thinking of a better way to do something. Okay. Curves would be an option. Another idea would be to actually do another remesh step, or just include it in the initial remesh step to have more geometry on the side that's kind of drooping down. I'm just going to take a look at how this whole thing is going to look like when, before the whole displacement stuff, I actually transform. Wait, no, I'm just going to do it after. That's fine. For that to be more responsive, I'm just going to turn off the subdivision and put this down to just have something very responsive. And then I'm going to just rotate this thing around to get a nice angle. Let's see. Like this. Oh, not scaling. That's wrong. So the slice of pizza is just going to be lifted up, and then I want to have some cheese like drooping down like this and going to the ground, kind of like this. Maybe that's a little extreme, but that's kind of the idea. And then the camera, it's going to look approximately like this, and you can see the cheese going down here. Okay, that much for the transformation. Let's go back to full resolution. Yeah, that shouldn't really do anything with the geometry. It's just in a different place. Oh wait, no, the cheese is afterwards. I'm having second thoughts of making the cheese in a second modifier. Okay, but I do have to think a little bit about how I want to do the droopy cheese first, because before I make any other decisions. The issue with just taking some spots here and making them droop down with some vector math is that I'm going to run out of geometry at some point, because the more I stretch it, it's just not going to be enough vertices. But maybe I can actually just cheat my way through by using geometry from actually down here. Oh, yeah, maybe you know what I mean. To actually just borrow some geometry from the bottom side and just get it all down. And then it might work. But yeah, this is relatively difficult. Maybe actually using an additional piece of geometry would be better here. How would I do that? I would kind of try and isolate some geometry from the edge here. Then just pass it down, kind of. Then maybe additionally distribute more points. And then I could add more points that I then do the whole remeshing thing for points to volume, volume to mesh. Oh boy. I'm sorry, I realize that this is not the most interesting thing to look at right now. Just me and my brain trying to make this somehow work. But that's just how it goes sometimes. Okay, I think I do really want to, before I do the transformation, actually add the cheese. So I'm just going to copy this whole thing and put it into the first modifier, because the whole smoothing happens afterwards anyways, which is something I changed. And I just need to remember that, okay, this is going to get the toppings mask, and this is going to get the sides mask. Okay, copy. Let's turn it off as well, and then paste. Okay, and then toppings goes in here. Side goes here. Okay. And that's the cheese. At least the cheese on top. Oh, yeah. Passing in and out. And there you go. Okay. Oh, I gotta stretch a little bit. Stringy cheese. I'm thinking about just creating the geometry separately and then adding it in with a boolean. But I'm not 100% sure this is the greatest idea. Actually, I feel like I should really consider using my tools that I uniquely have with geometry nodes more, that I can't get with something like shader nodes as they are. Like, for example, proximity. So one thing I can do, for example, is, yes, let's try that. Delete geometry. And then use the side mask. Compare it. Oh. This stays the side. Compare it, and everything that is less than a threshold, like 0.5, is going to be thrown away. And that should happen after the transform. Before the transform. Wait. I can still change it later. Let's say before. Oh, it happens separately. And then the proximity. And this is going to be the target. And then I'm going to probably just capture an attribute. Yeah, that should be fine. Which is going to be the distance to this geometry. Yes, on the point domain. And let's just take a look at that, because I think that's going to be useful. There. So what this gives us is a very nice fall off from the edge of the pizza slice to the center, and that's something that in shader nodes you would rather have to actually calculate that more by hand. But here we can instead just separate a specific part of the geometry that is just the edge here, and then look at the distance to that. There you go. And then I can use that. Use a map range. Let's just first do something like this. I have to see later if that actually is what I want. And then another math node. Raycast to the edge. Oh yeah, raycast might be nice. Wait, raycast to the edge. Cheesy crust. I'm just gonna go for the regular cheese toppings that are drooping down. I think that's gonna be nice, if it works. Okay, this was supposed to be multiplication. And yes, bottom. My brain is already starting to give up a little bit, but I'll try and plow through. Let's see. This should... Is it still to the viewer? Yes. Oh yeah, 0.5 is way too much. Like this. Yes, I think we're getting somewhere. And then I will do some more displacement. Question is when. I feel like if I try and do this before the smoothing, it's just going to unsmooth everything I do, so maybe I will have to do it after and then smooth again eventually. Or actually, yeah, that might be it. I might have to separate the droopy part. This is difficult. Who would have ever thought that making this completely procedurally would be difficult? Not me. I'll just... Oh, wrong noise. I'll just try and make the setup here and then see what comes out of it. Wrong noise again. Third time's the charm. Noise texture. Okay, same old story. Float curve. Multiplication. Value input this time. Not making that mistake again. And then instead of using the normal, I'm just going to use a vector as the direction. Because I do just want to a vector? Wait. No, not a vector. I do just want to have it droop downwards, straight down, after the pizza slice is like lifted up. So I'm gonna have this point straight down. But actually, instead of just using this kind of vector, I am going to use the actual position, separate the XYZ, and have it droop by the distance that it has to the floor. That way I can make sure that the cheese like touches the ground. Maybe that's gonna look a little bit too much, but we'll see. Okay, so set position. Wait. Back to math. And basically to yeah, let's try that. I'll have to invert by -1 a vector that only contains the z component of the position. So I'm going to multiply by 0, 0, 1. Scale that by -1. and then I end up at the ground. Let's see if that works first. Looks like it does. Right now we have a very flat piece of slice of pizza. But then obviously I want to also scale that with the mask that I just created, and then with some noise later on. Yeah, so now it is getting smoothed. But even if I don't smooth it, it's not getting all the way down there. Why is that? I guess the mask doesn't quite get to 1. Interesting. Yeah, I'm not sure what the reason for that is. Oh god. I feel like this should in theory just go all the way down. Because the proximity, let's just try points. No. Proximity should be 0 on the exact edge. Oh yeah, I am multiplying it with the sides though. So maybe I need to map this a little bit differently. That was the sides, so let's give this, yes. Yes. That is a lot of droopy cheese. Okay. And now, finally, let's add the noise so it doesn't look like crazy waterfalls of cheese. And also add a little bit of a different profile to this. Maybe putting... that already helps a bit. I was hoping for more stringy droops. It's gonna be relatively difficult with the smoothing. Let's see. This needs to be more like this. Here for the proximity, maybe I'll actually take more. Oh god. I'm not so certain why this doesn't take part in drooping down. Did I take the bottom? Oh yeah, I only took the bottom, right? I think I multiplied it. Yeah, that's the bottom. I thought it was the sides. Maybe I should add the sides to this. Yeah, I think that would help. Wrong node. Or use the maximum of the bottom and the sides. Let's see. Ah, look at this nightmare. I mean, the smoothing, it is necessary, but it also just destroys all detail. was missing out on a bunch of messages. The difference is in GeoNodes, it could be a beautiful render rather than material displacement noding. Not sure what you mean. What you mean by that? Sorry. Volumetric steam. Oh. Not a bad idea. Very interesting. I'm not sure how easy that would be to... I mean, you can just make it custom. I'll think about it. It's a pretty good idea. Okay. Okay, one thing that's obviously still missing, or wait, maybe not obviously, but it would definitely add a lot, would be to make the cheese more bulby, just like the blobs on the crust, and for that I'm just going to use the same old technique that I've been using before. Okay, let's see. Droopy cheese. Okay. Just turn off the geometry while I'm working to have no lagging. Okay. Bunch of iterations. And now I'm using the normal. That's not the normal. Normal. And I'm gonna multiply it with that same mask. Wrong note. Vector scale, vector math. Scale it up by that mask and by a vector. Oh. We'll still have to see how that works out, but that's the theory of making it more blobby. Oh. Hang on. It should look different. What am I multiplying here? Did I forget something? I'm scaling it with the mask and with a vector. That's fine. I think with the mask I'll have to power up. What is happening? In theory, this should kind of nicely grow these spikes here to the outside so they get more blobby. Maybe I need to capture something. All attributes that I'm using for these masks are already captured. Oh, the position is not captured. That's the point. So this, this noise texture that I'm using to generate the mask of where it droops down, is using the position of the geometry. And the position after changed here is obviously going to be a different one. So to actually make this work the way I want it to is I have to capture the position attribute before it's being used. Like this. I capture it and then I plug it into the noise. Oh god. Wait. It probably means that it works. Ah, look at this. Beautiful. Yeah, I mean, it looks a little bit strange, but it does prove the point I was trying to make, at least. Maybe... yeah, maybe this could work if I just do it after the smoothing. I think I'm just gonna try it out. Okay. To make this work, I'll just make this a node group, I think. And I can much more easily just plug it into the other modifier. And I can actually remember what this gets. So this needs a specific, this needs a specific attribute that I need to pass out, and that's the distance to the rim. Yes. So I give it out and I call it rim distance, and that's going to go into the attribute rim underscore distance. And then I use it in here for this first input. Then these two are, what are they? Oh god. They are the bottom and the side. I think I'm already giving those out, am I not? No, not the bottom. Okay, so bottom needs to be passed out. And it goes to the bottom attribute. And yeah, then I can use it. The bottom's going to be this. Is the Blender file saving frequently? I think not frequently enough. It's a good idea. Oh, I wrote bottom instead of bottom. That's not what it is. Bottom and what was this? The sides? I think so. Yes. Where does this go? Back here. Okay, this is already a huge mess, but at least I still know what's going on. Then I'm just going to, oh, this was just the viewer. Yeah, then I can just cut this and remove the output because it's not needed. And then I'll just copy this node group and put it here. Where is it? Oh, over there. Okay. And then I expose the rim distance, the bottom and the side, and add them from here. So rim distance, bottom, side, and it works as it did before. Wait. Did I? Yeah. Okay, let's mute it here to see. Yes. And now it's after the smoothing, which is very noticeable. But we can figure it out. So power, let's try something less extreme. And then do a bunch more smoothing, maybe scale this down by more. More smoothing. There can always be more smoothing. But yeah, now you can see the effect that I was mentioning earlier, that there is just not so much geometry left, because all of this has been stretched all the way down, and the faces are getting huge and it's getting very jagged. Yeah, it's very unfortunate, but not much I can do about right now. But that was a constant issue during the previous Nodevembers, where I was only using shader displacement. So I would always, because I couldn't do any tessellation stuff, I would always have to try and make it work with the geometry that I have and kind of shift it around into places where I actually need it. Yeah, and one way I would do that here then would be to just take the geometry from the bottom of the slice, because that's not going to be visible in the render anyways, and just shift it to the side. I could do that here as well, but it is relatively difficult to do. I mean, it's not super difficult, but it is annoying to do, at least. Oh, I do have an idea though how I could make that relatively easily, I think. I'll try and make it work without first though. Maybe I can figure something out. So, let's look at 20 iterations. That doesn't look too bad. Oh, that doesn't look too bad. You just can't look down here. Also, I don't want the cheese to be up here, actually. I just want it to be as a topping, like drooping from the side. So let's just remove that from there. How do I do that best? Probably if I just... Yes, here. From the sides, remove the crust, because the crust is part of the side. Oh god. Okay, gotta trace back the steps. What's happening here? This is the side, and I need to use a math node to subtract the crust. Let's take a look. Did it help? Kinda. And if I just power this up, it's kind of what I want. It's not perfect, but it's an honest slice of pizza. Let's see. I can delete this now because it's been replaced with the external node group after the smoothing. This one. I actually don't need this anymore because I only needed it to move this around. Hello? Control Alt G doesn't work. Oh, it's just Alt G now. I think that changed. I feel like I remember it being Control Alt G, but it works. And then let's tweak the noise a little bit. I feel like we don't need that much detail. Oh god. It looks a bit strange. Oh, I turned off the smoothing here. Okay, this is this is quite extreme. I am not so sure about this. Okay, I can just decrease the amount. Where can I do that? Normal here. And then it shouldn't really go all that far inwards at the bottom. I can just decrease this. That's kind of it. It's getting there. I'll just change the noise a little bit. I was getting the wrong one. By shifting it around with a vector math node. Just try and get lucky with a nice seed. That looks not too bad. Kind of want to make these a little bit more blobby as well, like these here. So I'm thinking maybe I can change this to be lower. There you go. That is a lot of cheese. Actually relatively happy with this one. I'm glad that I actually got somewhere in the end, because at some point it didn't really look like it. Okay. And in theory, because this is all nice and procedural, I can just lift. Wait, what is this? Yeah. I can just lift this pizza more and the cheese adapts to droop further down, and I can rotate it around. Actually, to have a nicer effect for this, I think I want to, for the cheese noise, yes, I want to capture the position before I do the transformation. So, and then give that out as a modifier output attribute. Let's take a vector. Plug that out. And give that as UVWs, because it's 3D coordinates of the pizza slice before it's transformed. So it's kind of like a UV map, but it's 3D vectors, and it's very useful because I can still change this transformation around. The cheese is going to adapt afterwards, but the UVWs are going to stay the same. And that's quite useful. And then I'm going to call that like coordinates. Why not? Oh, coordinates. There you go. Oh, we're at the 3 hour mark. That's actually decent. I was thinking about streaming for like 3 hours. But you never know with these things. I wanted to add more toppings. And also, there could be a little bit more detail on the crust, like having it actually look more like baked dough, and this looking more like cheese. And I mean, in theory, adding some shading to this would also be nice. I was thinking of just having it like a clay render, but yeah, I'll have to just look at this with some rendering and see. But first, I'll use the coordinates as an input here. And instead of capturing them like this, I'm going to expose them as the coordinates. And then give them in as the coordinates attribute. And now I can just easily change the transformation like this, which is actually kind of fun to do because you can see the cheese actually adapting. It is relatively slow, but yeah, you can see how it changes along. And now maybe like one more thing at least. I'm going to get an object info node and add a little bit of a controller to the cheese. So I'm gonna add an empty. Well, a controller for the whole pizza basically. Pizza controller. And then I'm going to use the location and rotation of that thing to control the translation and the rotation of the geometry in here, so I can actually just like this. I can actually just use it as a bone, kind of like this, you can see, which is kind of nice. Makes it very very easy to transform this thing in 3D space. And it looks pretty cool to be like this responsive. I mean, it's not super responsive, but it actually changes the whole geometry because it's all procedural in your hand as you're moving the slice of pizza around, which is kind of cool. And let's just actually take a look at this and change some parameters that we created in the very, very beginning in here. So here I should be able to change the size of the slice of pizza. It's a very tiny slice. Hang on. Oh, it's like half a pizza. Not quite the 3-sided triangle anymore, but yeah, there you go. The drooping does look quite extreme. I'm not too sure if it's maybe a little bit too much. I feel like maybe I think I'm just going to instead move the controller more down so it's not lifted up as much, and then the cheese is not going to go up that much as well. More like this. And it looks nice. Okay. I think for the day I'm going to call this a success. It's one of the first things I've been doing in geometry with fields. So it does take a little bit of getting used to actually using it. I mean, I know how this stuff works in theory, but actually using it is always a little bit of a different thing. And yeah, the geometry nodes that I've been used to had a lot less features. All the whole curve stuff is also new. Because we've been working on the sprite branch, which was split up a while ago. But yeah, I will make this rendered somehow. I'm not sure how I'm going to do this. I'm not super certain how interesting that's going to be on stream, if I'm going to do it tomorrow or just do it on my own time and see how it looks, because everything is a lot quicker when you're actually doing it on your own. You can just think in peace and silence. So maybe I'll just make it on my own time. But I'm definitely going to keep going with these streams and go through the other prompts. So the other amounts of sides that we'll have for this first block. But it is very nice to just have 2 days per prompt to be a little bit more... you can just focus a little bit more on the individual things and make a little bit more out of it. But yeah, I'm happy that I got somewhere with this. It looks relatively organic and not super artificial. We'll see how it looks rendered. Yeah, thanks a lot when to those who are sticking around. Also giving a lot of tips in the chat. That was also very nice, like the whole remeshing stuff. And yeah, glad we made it somewhere. And I hope you learned a little bit. Maybe you were doing your own Nodevember stuff on the side, or maybe you'll start now that you've seen it. Yeah, thanks so much for sticking around, and bye. See you next time.